Ever wonder what it would be like to have blood boil make your blood boil? This is Blood Death Knight Mage Tower. All right, fam. So I was able to complete the Blood Death Knight challenge earlier today. I think this is absolutely one of the tougher challenges. If I hadn't had experience using Vengeance Demon Hunter and Guardian Druid, I think that this is easily 200, 300, 400 pulls for you to get it. If Blood Death Knight is your first tanking class you're trying it on, I definitely recommend going and playing some of the other classes and getting a feel for the fight before you jump into Blood Death Knight. All right, let's go over the talents, consumables, macros, and gear. I think almost everything here is absolutely mandatory. Unlike some of the other classes, I think there's a little bit of room for play. I don't think there's a way to do this fight without using these exact talents and exact gear choices. All right. So first, we're going to have Tombstone, Homeostasis, Blood Tap, Anti-Magic Barrier, Grip of the Dead, Voracious, and Purgatory. This row is a little bit optional, and Tightening Grasp might even have some applications, but honestly, even with a 1 minute and 30-second cooldown, you're only going to get one chance to use it probably. So it really doesn't matter. Grip of the Dead at least gets you a slow, so you can get a little space between you and some of the arcane ads in the first phase. Now, Tombstone gives you like a 30% absorb shield. We can't go without this. Homeostasis is a talent that increases the damage of our Death Strike and the healing done. We don't really care so much about the healing done. It does matter a little bit, but more, we really need this for the damage. And you'll see in the fight what I'm talking about. We have Blood Tap. This is mandatory. Every 25 seconds, you can reduce damage by about 20%. Anti-Magic Barrier is not a normal talent in this row. You would normally take Will of the Necropolis. However, with that being said, the applications of Anti-Magic Barrier are pretty huge in the first phase. And if you're below 30% health in the second phase, you're already basically dead. We needed options to mitigate some of the other damage. In this row, we have Voracious, Death Pack, or Bloodworms. All of them kind of work. The damage from Bloodworms is negligible. The healing is whatever. So I opted to go for the Death Strike additional healing as well as the Leech for a little bit. Doesn't really matter. You don't really feel it. I mean, maybe a little bit, but ultimately it's whatever. Now, this last row, I had played with basically all three of these. Bone Storm did have some great applications in the first phase and probably even in the second phase as well, but you basically have to have Purgatory for the second phase, so we're locked into this talent choice. We don't really have an option. For our gear, we're basically locked into Shadowlands gear. I had some interesting stuff from BFA because this character was actually my main in BFA Season 2. So I was able to like have this random cloak with a socket on it. I went and farmed a Ravaged Seed Pod from the first boss in Emerald Nightmare. This trinket I feel is absolutely mandatory, as well as our Crusader Heirloom trick. So basically this is an heirloom that I have upgraded 4 times. You send this to a character that's either level 1 or level 10, and then you apply a Crusader enchant to it, and then you send it back. Basically, if you just try to do this on a max level character, the item level will be too high and you can't apply Crusader to it, so you need to send it to a lower level tune so that you can get the Crusader enchant on it. That Crusader did nearly as much. Well, I guess it only did about 10% of my health at the end here, but early on it was doing almost the same amount of health as my Death Strike. The healing from Holy Strength is actually super important in the first phase. We're taking a ton of damage and we don't have a lot of options for healing ourselves. So I definitely recommend getting this Crusader enchant, even if at the end it's only doing 10% of your total healing. I also opted to use a Blood Spattered Scale. At the end of the day, I really needed scale in the second phase as I was dying by just a couple thousand health, and the Blood Spattered Scale was giving me the health I needed to survive in the second phase. So if you have access to this, go farm one. You can run normal. It'll still scale down to the same eye level as this 252 one. I just got really lucky in one of the runs that I did where I got scale straight away, even though my character's eye level is still really low. Perks of being a streamer and doing 15s all day. So the consumables that we used were basically Shadowlands consumables. We used a Flask of Spectral Power. We used Shadow Core Oil. We used Stake a la Mode for the versatility buff. You can probably use the haste buff one as well. Either one probably works. Personally, I wanted the verse buff to reduce the damage I was taking in the first phase a little bit. You can also use a heavy Desolate Armor Kit. I tried purchasing some, ended up buying some heavy Desolate Leather instead. I don't even know if they were on the auction house last night when I grabbed them, but didn't try again. So it's not mandatory to have the stand buff, but I definitely think it can help out as we died by very few damage a few times. For our in-combat consumables, we also have Potions of Unbridled Fury, and Drums of Fury. These were just what was cheaper. You can use Drums of Deathly Ferocity. They do the same thing. I also recommend having spiritual healing potions as well as goblin glider kits. Now, it appears that I didn't actually have any spiritual healing potions on me, but it can definitely help out and make a difference, so keep some on you. Normally, I would say you can use potions of prolonged power. You absolutely cannot use anything other than potions of Unbridled Fury. You absolutely need the DPS from them. For me, my potion of Unbridled Fury did 5.3% of my DPS by the end. Potion of Unbridled Fury did quite a bit of work in the first phase and in the second phase. The last thing I want to talk about is we had some macros. This is a generic focus kick macro. I highly recommend having one. This question mark here on my bars is actually a focus macro, and this is a focus kick macro. So I'll put that on the screen so you can copy it. Luckily with Blood Death Knight, our kick is ranged, and you actually don't even need to be facing the target that you're kicking. So this can come in handy. You'll see why, because we're going to be running all over the map in the first phase. So I highly recommend having this macro. And then this is an emergency macro. It's a Gorfine's Grasp macro that targets Velen and then casts Gorfine's Grasp all in a single button. And you'll see why we might potentially need that when we go through the video. All right, so let's jump into this video. I'm a little late getting my food buff here, so I start the fight a little late. Make sure you have your food buff already on so you can start straight away. It messes with the timings a little bit of some important spellcasts that we're going to do straight away. So we're going to need to get a Blood Boil on this boss straight away. I use Morrowind to get some stacks up. Keep in mind that Mind Rend is completely magical damage, so these armor stacks actually don't do anything. But I do need at least 5 shards if I'm going to use my Tombstone, which is an Absorb Shield. This Mind Rend does 1.5k damage. So keep that in mind, that you're going to constantly need to be dealing with the damage from this Mind Rend. We just got our first cast of Drain Life, so we kick that. We're going to walk over and Blood Boil the eye. You need at least 1 Death's Caress and 1 Blood Boil to kill it. I have a potion of Unbridled Fury up, so I'm doing a little bit more damage to it. In general, if you're only going to use 1 Blood Boil and 1 Death's Caress, you're going to need to look at the eye. It will finish its full cast before it actually dies. So you'll see that often I'm having to look at the eye before it goes down. Otherwise, I get knocked back. Getting knocked back in this fight is brutal. You end up having to chase these eyeballs all around. So we really need to stay on top of the eyes, which poses a problem because Mind Rend is basically shitting on us. The fact that it's doing 1.5k and our only healing ability is really a melee ability, which refreshes our stacks of this this health decrease. It's actually like a massive problem. So you're going to be spending most of your time running around the fight almost the entire time. Our first set of ads is coming out, but I decide I'm going to kill this Tormenting Eye. Now, right here, look, this positioning is actually pretty key. This Blood Boil actually does damage to Variss. Variss is just in range, and I get this damage on Tormenting Eye. You'll see me do this a lot where I'm running around the edge of this AoE ability so that I can get Blood Boils onto Variss to increase my damage and DPS on Variss. After I kill this Tormenting Eye, I'm going to get in, and this is our first Seed Pod. We don't worry too much about their Netherstorm casts. The difference between Blood Death Knight and Guardian Druid and Vengeance Demon Hunter is that these mobs actually don't move when they start casting Netherstorm. This was one of the iterations that they had with Guardian Druid. It makes it way tougher for Guardian Druid, but for Blood Death Knight, this is key because we don't have any way really of stopping these. I tried some different abilities out to try to kill it. You're basically stuck just like blood boiling them down over time.
Crap.
So we're at 6 stacks of the aura, so we're going to get out, and then we're going to stun to stop the Mind Rend from blasting us, all right? We're going to clean up another Tormenting Eye. There's the Death's Caress plus Blood Boil, and get our kick in. Now that we have the Infernal up, we're going to want the Infernal almost always on top of Variss. It makes it a lot easier to dodge these smashes while we DPS Variss, all right? There, I actually missed it, and I used my first Goblin Glider. As opposed to Guardian Druid, because we were blasting the first phase, using a Goblin Glider early doesn't hurt us nearly as much as it did when we were a Guardian Druid. So don't worry too much if you need to use a Goblin Glider kit early. It'll likely be up again for the second half of the fight. So you see here, my health is actually getting really low. And this is because these Mind Rends are just blasting into us. And we had no way of like actually really healing ourselves during that time. Unfortunately, I had to refresh my stacks to get the heal in, but I come in and I Vampiric Embrace and I get a couple Death Strikes in, and now I'm kind of up against it. I have to deal with these adds at the same time as dealing with that kick, so I'm forced to use an orb here to stop the Nether Horror cast from killing Prophet Velen. So again, we're cleaning up eyes. We're getting our Death and Decay down, honestly, because we needed more damage there and we wanted to kill off that Nether Horror. We finally dropped our Aura of Decay stacks, so we're able to jump in and get a little more DPS there. And then we're just going to take a few more stacks here and wait for our next pod. This is our third set of adds, so our pod is going to be up every other set of adds, and we're going to use that to kill him. I stun Velen there so that because I have 8 stacks, I don't want him to kill me with his next Mind Rend. So I stun him. We'll wait for the duration of the stun to end, and then we'll pop into the orb here. This will daze him for another 4 seconds and let us drop our stacks so we don't die, because we definitely got too many stacks there. We're running around here because we're looking at 5 million things. We weren't sure if our Aura of Decay had dropped off. We finally figured out that it had, and we jumped back in. I grip there just to pull it farther away from Velen. I hate when Variss is closer to Velen. I feel like it causes a lot of problems, and it forces me to end up using these orbs again. So we grip him more towards the back of the room again, back to where he originally started, so that we have a little bit more space between him and Velen. The more your Infernals are on top of Variss, a lot easier to dodge these slams and stuff like that. So highly recommend just getting them in, gripping them in even. I did that often to keep these guys here because it made it a lot easier to dodge. Okay, one thing I want to mention that I think is really important is that when you're stuck out here in Bufu, you kind of want to be rotating your anti-magic shell and your stun to mitigate some of the damage from Mind Rend. As you can see right at the end of the cast there, I casted my anti-magic shell. Anti-magic shell lasts for 7 seconds, and Variss's Mind Rend cast is 4 seconds. So if you cast it right at the end of a Mind Rend, you'll actually be able to absorb 1 Mind Rend and then also a subsequent Mind Rend. This was part of the reasoning for choosing this talent, was because we can't heal these Mind Rends when we're not in melee. And when we're waiting for our stacks to fall off, or we're out here killing Tormenting Eyes, we're just getting blasted by Mind Rend and we have no way to mitigate that damage other than anti-magic shell. Keep this on cooldown as well as your stun. You shouldn't need your stun for many things, so that using the stun to stop the Mind Rend cast is great. Wait till the end of the cast to stun in some of these situations, as that will mitigate the most damage overall. You'll mitigate this Mind Rend as well as 4 seconds of them not casting the next Mind Rend. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead until when Krull comes out. We clean up Variss at the same time as we're cleaning up our Nether Horror ads, so we're in pretty good shape. Our defensives are in great shape. We have 2 charges of Rune Tap. We have Icebound Fortitude, and our Tomb will be up by the time we need it, which is for the second Annihilate. For this first Annihilate, you basically just need to have full health and 10 Bone Armor shards. And you can live it. It doesn't do too much damage. Now, this is one of the trickier parts with a Blood Death Knight. Okay, these guys are going to run off to Velen. This always happens, and I put a marker on my guy that is behind High Lord Krull. If these Nether Horrors are allowed to cast on Velen or on top of Corvus, Blood, whatever his name is, the fight's over. They'll kill both characters, either character. They basically can't cast, and you only have 1 stop, which is your Gorfiend's Grasp. This fight for a Blood Death Knight forces you to use orbs to stop Nether Horror casts. So with this, I'm going to get in range, and then I'm actually going to grip here. Okay, so for this Nether Storm cast, we're going to need to use our Gorfiend's Grasp to stop their cast. I was hoping to save my next orb, but my health ended up being in a pretty shit spot, and he's about to cast Annihilate again. So we go for the orb here to get us topped up, and then he's going to cast his second Annihilate. Now, our goal for our second Annihilate is Rune Tap plus Tomb. That is why we switched to Tomb, was so that we would have enough healing with short cooldowns to get us through the second Annihilate. So again, to reiterate our plan, for the first Annihilate, we use either nothing or Rune Tap, because Rune Tap's on a low cooldown. We can get it back up. There's no problem if you use it. Our second one is Rune Tap plus Tomb. Our plan for the third one is Rune Tap plus Icebound Fortitude. And if we need to for a fourth one, we're going to use Scale, Rune Tap, Tomb, and that will probably still proc our Purgatory. It might be enough, probably won't be. And then if we don't pop Purgatory, we have Purgatory for number 5. You'll probably die after that anyways, because you still need to be able to heal back that healing. The way Purgatory works is it's not like a Vengeance Demon Hunter, where it's just a flat sheet death. You have 3 to 4 seconds to heal back whatever overkill damage was done to you. So you need to have some kind of plan for healing that damage back. So here we get a second Annihilate. We successfully Rune Tap plus Tomb. So that did not kill us. Now we have our adds again. We need to manage this. So we're going to need to pop another orb. Now this Netherstorm cast. Now it's important to keep in mind that Corvus Bloodthorn is literally right behind the boss always. He's running around with the boss, tacking it. So I dropped Anti-Magic Zone here, but I don't think that's going to do enough. So I go for the orb anyways, because I don't want to necessarily wipe here. So once you see that this cast is going off, look, this is a single tick and it took him to sub to 50% health. And that's because he's literally following these around and we don't have a stop. So if you do not have Gorfine's Grasp, you are absolutely 100% forced to use an orb, which kind of sucks because his Annihilate is over 7 seconds away. So that means any melees or fell stomps or anything like that, we're going to have to heal that back for our defensive plan to work, because all of our defensive plan start with us at 100% health, right? So this is a problem. This is one of the trickiest parts about playing the Blood Death Knight class for this challenge, is that you don't have a stop for these Nether Horrors. Luckily, I get this off, and then I'm able to clean up these adds with just Blood Boils. Here's the Annihilate, and we end up proccing Purgatory. Now, we did use our Icebound Fortitude, but we did not get our Rune Tap off. But as you can see, our health literally went to 0 when we got hit. Don't forget the kick. You always have to kick after the first, third, and presumably 5th Annihilate. So keep that in mind. That's that horn you hear, that Twisted Reflection kick goes off right there. So I was luckily able to heal up the damage after the fact, so that I didn't die after Purgatory ended. And now the next set of adds is coming up, and we have our pod. So what we're going to do is drop our pod. I see that the boss's health is really low, and we use our orb just to get the kill in here, because we're basically done. And that's it. That's the end of the fight. I think that personally, I maybe could have squeezed out a 4th Annihilate if I had followed my plan correctly, but what is it? No plan survives first contact type of deal. Hopefully you found this video useful and helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing and dropping it a like. I will see you in the next one. Peace.